Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. So we are now on the 4th chapter of Bodhicaryavatara, and this chapter in Tibetan is called Payu. It's very difficult to translate this word, Payu. There are many different translations, but somehow I try to find out the Sanskrit version, the name of this chapter, and that gives totally a different name, a different title. It says Bodhisattva Siksha, which actually means Bodhisattva's teaching or training. There are two chapters. The chapter number 4 and 5, which are on Shila, whether you want to call discipline or right conduct, the second paramita. The first paramita, as we already discussed, is there is no separate chapter on the paramita of generosity or giving. The last chapter is on dedication, which is also about giving. And also it is, in some commentaries, it's also said that the first 3 chapters are all, in a way connected with generosity, because it's about generating bodhicitta and, taking the bodhisattva vows and things like that. And then now this 4th and 5th, it is about Shila. And the 4th chapter, as I said, in Sanskrit version that I found on internet, it says Bodhisattva Shiksha, the chapter name. That means the training of the bodhisattvas. But in Tibetan, it is translated as Payu, Payu Kiliu, the chapter on Payu. Payu is, in this, the Padmakara translation is translated as awareness. Now, the next one, Shijin, is translated as vigilance. This is the older translation, and I think it has a slightly different translation, I think, of the text title in the new translation, and I think there are different translations, or different translators have translated differently. Maybe it's not so useful to discuss this too much, but Payu is basically, sometimes, people call it kind of being careful or carefulness. And, in a way, Payu is also to do with kind of mindfulness, because, Payu means to be, like there is three things we talk about usually. Tenpa, Shijin, and Payu. These three Tibetan words. Tenpa is usually translated as mindfulness, but it is more about, remembering what to do, kind of remembering where are you, what's going on, and also then being aware of what you are supposed to do at that time. That's the first one. Shijin is usually Shi-yin. The word actually means Shi is knowing and Yin is continuously knowing. Here it is translated as vigilance. So it is kind of knowing, being aware continuously, kind of. That is Shijin. And the Paya is because of Tenpa and Shijin, then you have Paya. That means like you know what you are doing, and you know at every moment what, you are careful what you are doing and not doing. For instance, Buddha instructed his monks to be Paya. First time, because, there's a kind of a story that some of his monks, his younger monks, went to a place in a home, and then the people said, "Oh, please go in and sit there," and they just rushed in and then sat down very kind of quickly, and one of them sat on a baby because he didn't look carefully. The baby was on the bed, and he just sat down on the baby. So since then, Buddha said, this is not the way. You have to be Paya. You have to be careful. You have to be, you have to see what's going on. You have to be careful where you are sitting. You have to be careful where you are stepping. You have to be, so it's actually instruction on mindfulness. Now, this chapter, I think I should spend a little bit more time on that. Then, what he's saying is that since now we have taken the Bodhisattva's vows, so we have to be aware and mindful that we do what we have committed. We have to remind ourselves of this again and again, because by taking the Bodhisattva's vows or commitments or bodhicitta, what we have done is that we would like to, I promise to, work for the benefit of all the sentient beings, and I would bring them all to perfect enlightenment, free from all sufferings. And so if I have made such a commitment, then I must not, waver from it. I must not forget about it. I must not discontinue working for that. And this is something we need to remind ourselves again and again. Because sometimes we say we will do something, we make a promise, and then we don't fulfill this commitment. And it depends on what is the commitment, of course. If you are making a commitment and that commitment is not that important, not that useful, not that much kind of, it doesn't make not that much difference to lots of people, then yes, it doesn't matter too much, even if we don't do it. But this is not the same. We are committing to bring an end to all the sentient beings' sufferings and my own sufferings, and work for the well-being of everybody. So this is a very, very important commitment. And so therefore, if we make such a great, important commitment, then we must not forget it. We must work on it. And we must think about this commitment again and again, whether this commitment is, something that is really worthwhile to make the commitment or not. And because this is something, it is so important, so wonderful, so useful, so positive, so a great, compassionate, and it's the well-being of all. It concerns the well-being of everybody. So I must, not forget it. I must not waver from that. That's the first part. And the second is that, in this life, what we are talking about here in this chapter is that in this life, we may be distracted. We may, many other things we have, and we find that something is more nicer or something interesting or something that we find useful and things like that, or something that is very enjoyable or something like that. And that might, distract us from this. But if you look a little bit deeply, then, nothing is more important than this, because this is something, all other things is very temporary result. At the most, it will be enjoyable or kind of something that will be entertain us for some time, or give us some interest, or give us something useful for the longest is this life. But this, if we work on the Bodhisattva's path, then it is something for the well-being or benefit of everybody, and my own benefit for the longest period of times. So therefore, it is nothing to be compared with that. So therefore, this life is a short time, and when we die, whatever we achieve in this life, on this world, that we cannot take it on, we cannot carry it further than that. We have to leave everything. But this is something for the benefit of so many people. So we must, we must not forget that. We must not waver from this in order to gain some temporary, pleasures, or temporary well-being, or temporary, positive things or interest or things like that, because that would be kind of actually less, in a way. If you look deeply, it will be less important for us. So therefore, it's also talking about a little bit the precious human life that we have now, how important it is, how many potentials we have as a human being, that we can do so much more with this life in order to help others, in order to improve ourselves, in order to, develop our own wisdom and compassion and things like that. Those are things which, the background kind of to motivate ourselves on the path. Then we come to the actual, the Sila part, and that is that if you look, what are the things that, is the most important thing? Because what we want is to end the suffering of ourselves and others, and for the long term, in a kind of from the root. And there, if you look a little bit deeply, we find that actually it's our negative emotions. What we call these 3 poisons, basically, or 5 poisons. Whether it's hatred, anger and hatred, and, malicious thoughts, this group, aversion group, or, too much attachment, or, greed, and, too much kind of, what do you call it? Kind of holding on to things, too much wishing, wanting, attachment, this group, aversion, attachment, and then not knowing clearly, ignorance, that kind of our mind not seeing the true nature of things, how the things really are. Mind is defiled, that's called what we call the ignorance, not knowing how things or how we are. And then on top of that, this the jealousy and the envy, this group, and also this too much of arrogance and too much of kind of self-centeredness, those kind of things. So these negative emotions, or what we in Buddhist terms called, kleshas, or mind poisons, kind of every negative thing that we do, every negative actions and reactions that we make is, instigated or inspired, or is happening because of these kleshas. So therefore, whether we are doing something that is harming others, or we are doing something that will bring pain and suffering and problem and all the samsaric problems, these are all coming because we are acting or reacting under the influence of the kleshas. So this is something very, very important to understand. So therefore, if that's like that, if when we talk about 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind, or any of the negative actions of our body or speech or mind, anything that we do to harm ourselves or harm anybody else or things like that, it cannot be unless it's inspired or under the influence of these negative emotions or kleshas. So therefore, if we have to if we have to live, if we have to become truly disciplined, or if you want to use the ethics, the word ethics or good conduct or whatever you call it, the Shila, it cannot be completely pure unless we work on our kleshas. So therefore, this is the most important thing to understand, that we have to work on our kleshas in whatever way we have to. So this becomes the most important thing to understand, and also to remind ourselves again. So therefore here, it says again and again that, I will be aware of my, kleshas, negative emotions, when they arise in me, and then I'll do whatever I need to do so that, it doesn't take me over. It doesn't overpower me. And then I have to act under the influence of my negative emotions. Because, if I act under the influence of my mind poisons, then it will always harm me. It will always bring suffering and pain and problem, and not only for me, but it will also bring lots of negative things and harm and suffering to other people. So therefore, by realizing this, I should not, let myself be, under the influence of the kleshas. And the first and most important thing is that I have to be aware. I have to become mindful. And I have to make a commitment to myself that whenever these negative kleshas arise in me, then I would say, yeah, this is not good. This is going to be harmful to myself, although it will arise as if it is something which is helping me, which is for me, it is good for me, oh, this is, somebody said something bad, so I this is hurting me, so I must do something to hurt that person. It will come as if it is something good for me. But actually, if you look a little bit deeply, it's not good for me. It's actually the thing that, brings me down. It is something the most harmful to me. And we need to understand that. And after understanding that, then I must apply whatever methods I know, whatever methods I can apply to let it go. Now this is important. Now one thing, there's two things here. One is that in whatever way it comes, we seem like attachment, for instance, happens as if this is something really nice for me, very wonderful for me. My also like greed, is something which is supposed to be helping me. There's something very nice, I must get it, I must have it, I must, obtain it. And then it is supposed to be, doing something that's supposed to bring happiness and, something good and wholesome to myself. But if I give in to that emotion, then I will be constantly struggling, and I will be constantly and I'm never, never satisfied ever, because, you can never fulfill your greed. So therefore, and in the process, you will do so many things that, even you will be ashamed of yourself, or you will, that you will hurt lots of other people. So therefore, understanding this, then I say, no, this is my true enemy. This is my true problem. So this is my disease. So therefore, I have to do something not to become, So this, and then, of course, the methods on how to do that will come later on also. And so therefore, it's not so much discussed at this moment, but here, the main method here is to let go, to let go. So when I really see that these negative emotions and the way I react is not useful, not beneficial for myself and others, then it is possible that I don't react with that. I let it go. Now that is here is important, because sometimes people think, and we feel, when I have lots, I am under the control of negative emotions, which is very strong. We have strong negative emotions, strong kleshas. It is very difficult. It is very difficult not to follow them. We can be very much overwhelmingly under the influence of these negative emotions, because it has been our way of reacting for like life after life, for a long time, since the beginning time. And so we are so used to, and not only that, but we are very addicted. We are totally like addicted with these negative emotions. So therefore, we think that sometimes it is impossible not to be under the influence of these, kleshas. But here, the important thing is that although it is true, its influence is very strong, it is, it's a very strong, emotion, because if we're under that, like very strong kind of anger, for instance, then, or hatred, we would not hesitate to kill somebody. Or, we would sometimes don't hesitate to jump in front of weapons, and risk our own life. It is so much powerful like that. But it says, if you look a little bit more deeply, it's not that powerful. It's not that powerful because it can't sustain. Even if, the strongest negative emotion arises in us, if we allow ourselves to not, to not act, but relax ourselves and, wait a little bit, in a very short time, sometimes in minutes, at least overnight, next time, we would feel totally different, And this, when I'm very, very angry and very, very, upset, so upset that I could, I want to kill somebody or something like that. And if I say, I don't do it that way now, I should not, because it is not good for me and not good for anybody. In the next morning, you will find that you don't want to do that, because you have changed, because that emotion has gone. So if all of these negative emotions are so short-living, it doesn't mean that it will not come back. It will come back too, but then it can't be that strong. And then if we can, if we can just be patient for a while, most of the time we don't have to do anything else, So, it will just change by itself. So therefore, we need to be aware. We need to be mindful. We need to know what is what, whether this, whatever happening is really good for me or not good for me. Really, something helpful or harmful. And then accordingly, we have to allow ourselves to act or not act. And so this is the discipline. Discipline is not something that is with a stick. Discipline is to understand clearly what are the actions and reactions that are positive, wholesome, beneficial for myself and others. And then if those are coming up, if I'm, about to, if I have an, thought or, idea or emotion to do that, and when I see that this is a positive reaction, positive emotion, positive thought, then I allow myself to do that. I might allow myself to continue to work on that. If I see an emotion, a reaction, or a thought that I see is harmful to myself, if I, act on that, and harmful to others, harmful now and harmful in the long run, then I allow myself not to do that. This is discipline, So therefore, discipline has a lot to do with wisdom. We need to see clearly what are the, the result of these actions or reactions. And by seeing that, understanding that, then it is up to me. It's up to my decision or my hands whether to allow myself to do that with my body, with my speech, and with my mind, or I will not allow to do that. So if I do this way, then, it's my decision. So therefore, nobody is imposing anything on me. So therefore, the first and most important thing about discipline, or whether you call it discipline or ethics or whatever you call it, the Shila, is about that. And then being mindful, being aware, being careful what we are doing or not doing. So therefore, this is the whole thing about understanding this, having this understanding, and with this understanding, then I act and train in this, because of course, it is not always that I will be able to do that. When the emotion comes up, then I could sometimes, without my awareness or mindfulness, I could react habitually, react with my negative emotions. But then I catch it up afterwards and say, no, that was not a good thing. That was not right. That was not good for me and not good for others. So I try to do something to kind of what to call it, to purify that, or to change that, or to to rectify that action. And if that is something I cannot rectify, at least in my mind, I rectify it, I purify it. I say, this is not something I would do again. I would not do that because that's not good for me and not good for others. So when we keep on doing that, that is training. That's the practice. The training in Shila is that. So it's all about habit. It's all about training. So if we keep on doing this again and again and again, then slowly, we'll do less and less of negative things, and we'll do more and more of positive things, because we become more aware, more mindful, more clear, and this is how to train. And now here, try to make a very strong and clear, motivation, intention, commitment to do that training. It's not about, I did something, one mistake, and then, become, guilty for whole life. That's not the idea. If you did one negative thing, I can purify it. I can change it. I can regret it. I can, and then I can keep on doing as if I have not done that. And then so I did again and again next time. So if I can, if I can one time, act in the right way, in spite of my negative emotion or my, these circumstances or provocations, then I become more confident. I say, okay, this actually I did something right. My training is, is giving results. I've been able to prevent myself doing something wrong because I could, because of my mindfulness, because of my awareness, and because of my being, aware and mindful. So I become, that's when I have to congratulate myself. I appreciate myself, and then, keep on increasing that. And therefore, making this kind of, and then if this negative emotions, if you look deeply, here it says also, it's actually, this doesn't, if you look at the, it has to be inside your mind, but where is it? Whether it's some kind of anger or hatred or jealousy, or ignorance, or too much what do you call it, desire or whatever. If you look, you can't find it. There is nothing there. It is not anywhere inside or outside there. All these things are habitual. It just comes and goes and comes and goes. So therefore, we don't have to be too much afraid of that. Also, we can just allow it to relax. And then, so this is also a little bit mentioned here, but not elaborated too much. Generally, we talk about 3 ways to work on our emotions. First is, to let go by understanding its negative effect. So, like just relaxing, and with our determination not to be overpowered by this, just letting go. Second is to at that moment to think about something else, like compassion, or thinking about somebody, like a Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, enlightened beings, good people, some positive side. That's one. That's called transforming. And another is understanding the nature of these negative emotions. Actually, these negative emotions or kleshas are actually very weak because they don't really exist anywhere. Because it overpowers us and it's very strong in a way, but if we can look face to face with it, they are also just like fleeting thoughts. So, and if we relax our mind and, become spacious, it can fizzle out, it can just disappear, unless we grasp on them and then not allow it to go. So therefore, this is also a little bit explained in a very short way. But so this is more or less about the chapter. So I will stop here, and then any questions would be welcome.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful,
Thank you.
Wonderful talk. Goes right to the heart of the teaching, right to the heart of the practice. There are a number of questions here.
Okay.
This is the first one.
Okay.
On Tuesday, 10 people were shot and killed in my childhood food market.
Okay, you were from Colorado?
Yes. What is it's from Julia. It says, what is the Bodhisattva approach to helping the 21-year-old man with the automatic weapon possessed by hatred? Thank you.
Well, yes, this is happening all the time. I mean, this is everywhere, actually, in one way or another, and this shows how negative the hatred is. This is not going to help anybody, himself also, and it's not going to solve any problems that he probably want to solve. And it's I'm sure he will be getting into lots of troubles and lots of problems himself, and so it's something that is bad for me and bad for others, bad for him and bad for all others, and bad for everybody. And this is exactly what we are talking about when we're talking about this, how negative the negative emotions are. And so therefore, now the main thing is that why this negative emotion coming? Basically, it's also coming from ignorance, and misguidedness. That this person, somehow understood or thought that by doing this, it would solve some kind of a problem. And then, he acted on that. Of course, having all these weapons available and all these things might have made it more, what can you say, more harmful, more, but that hatred itself is actually the main cause. And sometimes these kind of things happen, but another places it happens in many different ways. And so the hatred, especially, not especially, but all the time, actually, hatred and all these things coming from a wrong way of saying things, misunderstanding. And so therefore, it is not good for me, not good for others. So, and of course, lots of people might start to hate this person. But this person is also, in a way, a victim of hatred. So therefore, sometimes it is said, even in the Bodhicaryavatara, that, if somebody hits you, with a stick, then, who should you hate? And people will say, no, this person who hits me, I should hate him. Then the question is, but he didn't hit you, the stick hit you. Then why should I not hate the stick instead of the person? And you say that no, the stick is just an instrument. The man, the real person who did the damage on your, head was the person. But then, the person is not, not free. He was inspired by his hatred. And actually, it was the hatred which was the main culprit. So therefore, the hatred is the one who needs to be hated. That's even Buddha is sometimes said, the one who hates the hatred, but not the person who is, who is overpowered by the hatred. So we have to, I think this is the message from Buddhist point of view, is that this person who did that was under the influence of, negative emotion, wrong guidance, misleading information, whatever. So therefore, he is in a way a victim also. So, we have to pray for him. We have to try to, I don't know what we can do, but to change him, to make him a better person, to understand clearly what is right and what is wrong. Because this is from Buddhist point of view. Anybody, they said that, Buddha talks about, this is from Nagarjuna's letter to the, anybody who did something wrong can later on become mindful and become right. He says like Gao Tode, what is it? Dawa Tundal Tab Namje Gao Swanting Tode Deji. If they change, they can become totally pure. Like the sky can become clear and then the moon can shine out. Like Gao and Sonting and Tongde, the different persons, like there was this man called Angulimala, he killed like 999 people, and he was going to kill his mother too, because he got misguided. And then Buddha met him and, he said that, why don't you change? And he said, I can't change. I've already done so much bad things. He says, yeah, you can change. Why not? So he became a follower of Buddha. He became a monk. And then he later became an arhat. So, this is from Buddhist point of view, anybody, even if you have done lots of negative things, can also transform, can also change, can also purify. And therefore, so this is, this is something that's, I think, why we have to try to, anybody who is misguided, anybody who has negative ways of saying things, if you try to reason with them, sometimes it is possible, sometimes of course not, but this is the way it is.
Thank you so much. Another question here. And by the way, if anyone does have a question, please, you'll see a chat thing at the bottom of the screen, right in the middle. Do write your questions in there. This is from Jenny. Would Vasubandhu's 4 factors be a suitable way of dealing with the kleshas? Would Vasubandhu's 4 factors be a suitable way of dealing with the kleshas? Now, I don't know what Vasubandhu's 4 factors are specifically, but I'm sure.
I don't know either. Which is it?
Perhaps Jenny could if Jenny could.
Usually we talk about the 4 factors of purification. Yes, it's in many different sutras and tantras. I'm sure it is in Vasubandhu's also. I don't remember exactly. Maybe this is something like, from Buddhist point of view, first you recognize the negative action or negative emotion that is negative, like to recognize that and regret that. The second is then, you kind of make some kind of a commitment or some kind of a decision that this is negative, this is bad, this is harmful, so I would not like to do that. I would not like to repeat it as much as possible. Then trying to do something positive, to counteract that, whatever is the opposite of that negative action. I try to train in that, or I try to act on that. Third, and then, just, remember remind myself of, an example of this positive action and follow that, like thinking of the Buddha or enlightened beings, or, some like Bodhisattvas and things like that. So more or less in this way, like being mindful and being, a little bit focused on that. So more or less in this way. Of course, there are slightly different ways and things like that. But the main thing is to recognize the negative action as negative. And then, to make a clear decision not to do that again or as much as possible.
Thank you very much. This question is from Jay. Hi, I have a question for Rinpoche. You talk in other teachings about using obstacles on the path. This is in your book, Meeting Challenges. If we see kleshas as enemies, how do we grow to use them on the path? Will seeing them as enemies not just feed our aversion to them?
Yes. Anything, can be teaching, because if you have done something wrong, or if you have, and then you see that it's not a good thing, so you learn from that 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 this is something you should not do it, or things like that. So I mean, we can learn from anything, and also we can learn from good people, but we can also learn from negative actions. Like we can think about this person who shot so many people. Now, what good did it do for this person? So so if you allow yourself to be influenced by hatred and negative emotions, then it gives so much suffering to so much other people, but it doesn't give anything good to yourself. It would give himself so much more problem and pain and suffering, and his loved ones and things like that. So therefore, you can learn from there a big lesson. So in the same way, anything you can learn from there, and and we should try to learn. That's the I think idea.
Thank you. So we can use every opportunity to practice whatever comes up.
Yeah.
And this is a very good question from Lucia. And she says, and I'm sure it's something that people are very familiar with, what is the Bodhisattva approach when in a couple, the two people do not share the same understanding and awareness?
Patience. Patience, I think. I think this is important, because one of the main, I was listening to somebody yesterday in India, and he was saying that, when first India got independent, then lots of people were saying that, India will never be able to, become a proper democratic country, because there are so many people and so many different things and different views and different, and they are not literate, and they are not, things like that. But he was saying that actually the biggest achievement of India was that it could remain a good example of democracy for last so many years. And he was saying that the reason why that India could remain a good democracy was because it has this culture that you would allow differences you would allow different views and different cultures and different ways of thinking and different types of, many things exist. Not only exist, but also give some respect. So this, if you have to coexist, then that is the key. If you don't respect or somebody who is different from you, how can you coexist properly? He was giving this example of this Charvaka. India is basically a very religious kind of a community. Of course, there are so many different religions and there are so many different philosophies, and more than 300 different philosophies or 360 philosophies, that is even recorded from early times. And there was also, among these, there are also, there was one like totally, what can you say, nihilistic, like Charvaka. It says that, there is no life after, there's no life before, there's no God, there's nothing, you're just, and what they do, Indians consider him as a prophet, as a saint, Rishi Charvaka, so, they not only accept that philosophy, but they also, kind of respected him as a saint, kind of. So therefore, if you can respect others, even if it is not the same thing, or it's not what you accept, or what you believe in, or that they're totally different, or some different, then you can coexist, you can live together, you can so that's, I think, very important, and this is very important in the world now, especially because in long time before, the countries also were kind of a little bit isolated. The continents could be isolated, the countries could be isolated, people would not travel to and for too much and things like that. So, you can have your own kind of culture and your own society in your own, small, area and things like that. And then you don't have to be too much, associated with people from the other country or other places. But that's not possible anymore. We have it's the globe has become one village. We are on so if we don't have that, if we have to kill everybody who it doesn't accept my view, or if I have to be enemy to everybody who is not not exactly the same as me, then we have to fight all the time, and there can't be any peace. There can't be any, anything good happening. So
Yeah.
even in the one family, if they accept their differences, if they accept their, different, then they can live together. There was a family in Sikkim, and the wife was Tibetan, and the husband was a Muslim, not a Tibetan Muslim, he was another Muslim. And then she didn't give up her culture and her religion, he didn't give up his, and they lived together very well, very lovingly. And then, when she died, then he asked her community to come and do all the, pujas and rituals and whatever. and he gave half of his, his whatever he had, the money and all the things, and said that now you do whatever. I don't even know what to do, so you do everything. So they did everything, and then later on he died, and then they asked the Muslim community to come and then do whatever they have to do. So, and they never had to fight, or they never,
Thank you. It's probably the question of our time, isn't it? It's really the question of our society right now.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Jenny, and she says, is the yearning to be with others negative attachment? Is the feeling of loneliness something we should learn to accept instead?
Is the yearning for the
To be with others a negative attachment?
No, I think it's good to have, people around you. We all are social animals, and we have to depend on the people around us. It is. I think it's important. It's good, but I think it is. It's a problem if we, we do not learn how to live by ourselves also. If we have to be always, have to have people around us, and we have to be, if we cannot be alone, I think that's not good. So we have to learn to be alone, and no problem with that. And if we can have people around us, we should be very good, enjoy it, be cordial, nice. It should not be that when I'm alone, I always want lots of people around us, and then when the people are around, I feel totally, invaded, and and I don't have any privacy, and I feel so, what do you call it, intruded. Some people have that problem also. I think this both is not good, not useful. So I think we have to learn, train ourselves so that if you're alone, enjoy that, and learn to see the positive side of that, and then if we are with other people and many other people, then we enjoy that, and also see the positive side of that. And I think that would be important, because this is going to happen anyway, both.
Yes, thank you. Now there's another question here, which is a rather strange question, but I think at the heart of it is something quite important. And that's from Louise, who says, humans have too many negative emotions because they are predators. Should we not consider also changing our biology, like bears turn into pandas? Well,
how do we do that?
I think Buddhism suggests a different kind of transformation rather than using the genes, altering our genes. I leave it to you to comment on it, Rinpoche.
I don't know, but I think if we learn to, if we train ourselves to be, to be more kind and compassionate and understanding, and respect each other, then it will be okay, I think.
Yes, thank you. Now there's one last question here, and that's from Lucia again, and she says, what if that difference is perceived as the obstacles to a deeper growth or sharing or expansion? And what is children are also involved in that setup? And I think Lucia's first question was about differences of opinion. I think that was it. yes, she was talking about differences of opinion. And now she says here as a follow-up question, what if that difference is perceived as the obstacle to a deeper growth or a sharing or expansion? In other words, I suppose she's saying if someone is opposed to one undertaking religious practice or, and then she also says, and what is his children are also involved in that setup. So in family life, there can be difficulties in sometimes doing, one thinks there are perceived difficulties in practice, in doing practice. I think that's something I often hear people saying, oh, I can't do my practice because my husband doesn't like me meditating. I find it difficult to do practice because the children are making a noise. Or I can't do practice because I have to spend all my time doing homework with the children, and I think that's what Lucia is asking, but actually that is the practice itself, isn't it? But perhaps you have a comment to make on that.
Yeah, I mean, we always complain, that we have no time for practice, because we have to do this, we have to do that, and all the kind of things. Even monks say, that we have no time for practice, because there are so many things to do. So last time, Siddha Rinpoche told us that he sometimes hears that, of course, many people complain that they have no time for practice. That he says he understands. But when monks say that they have no time for practice, then what are they doing? So, but that is also, that's also something, we complain about. So, but I think, the main thing about practice is not really about time, but about our awareness and discipline. Like, of course, if we can, spend lots of time, if we have lots of time for meditation, and we are willing to do that, that's also good. But I don't think it is just sitting in a room and doing nothing else, is the only way to do meditation. But, being aware and being mindful in whatever you are doing in our life could be also a practice, and could be even sometimes more practice, because the real practice is about transforming yourself. And in order to transform yourself, you have to live. You have to live the practice. You have to integrate your life with the understanding and practice, like we just discussed. Even all different kind of negative emotions arise in us, and we become aware of that, and we kind of somehow let it go or not act on that. That's a true practice. Yeah, that's true training. So that can be done if we have some kind of discipline or some mindfulness or awareness, whether we are busy or we are not busy, whether we are, we have children or we have husband or wife, or, jobs or not, or whatever. So this, I think, is very important to understand. And that doesn't mean to say that, you should not have the time and you should not have the situation to have. It's good to have some special time for practice and things like that also. And then children, of course, the children are influenced by their parents. Not what they say, but more what they do. If you say, yeah, your child, you must be practicing Dharma, you must be practicing Dharma, might not make him or her a good Dharma practitioner. But if you are really, radiating that, the loving kindness, compassion, and, patience and tolerance and things like that, then the child might also try to learn from there and be influenced by your way of seeing. And so, there is how the children are influenced by the parents is not at all what they say, but the way they act themselves. So I think it is not what you tell them to do, but what you are. That, I think, influences the children most.
Well, I think that says it all. That is that answers a complete answer. But I think there's another little additional question, and that is maybe she means it's raising the children from a different faith, raising your own children in a different faith than your own.
Well, this is also, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. If you ask your children to follow this or that, usually they don't. Actually, especially these days, they want to do totally different from their parents. What their parents recommend is the one thing they will give up first. I think so. I think it's more about giving them a good example rather than telling them to do this or that. I think, of course, it is. I think it is. Sometimes there are parents who don't even tell their children what they are doing. They don't want to influence their children so much that they don't even tell them what they are doing or what they believe in or what. I think that's also is a little bit too much, too much on the other side. I think the parents should actually tell their children what they are doing, what they believe in, what they think is right and good and important and things like that. But then give them choice, give them freedom, give them allow them to think and understand what they want. Anyway, you cannot make them do what you want. So better to make them decide what they want by understanding. Because if they don't understand what we are doing, then of course they have no choice. So I think it is important to inform children about your understanding and view and things like that, and then but not try to persuade them. That's what I think.
Thank you very much. To share with your children. Have you time for two more questions, or it's getting?
Yeah, that's up to you.
Yeah. Okay, well, there are two more questions. I think we should leave it then.
Okay.
The first one is from Champa. He says, sometimes not acting on negative emotions translates into suppressing them. And can Rinpoche please advise on how to be more alert in avoiding this pitfall, which is as dangerous as expressing it? In other words, if you repress your feelings, it's as dangerous as blurting it out, or acting on it.
I feel I don't know. I don't know. People in the the West are, are very afraid of repressing their emotions. We never heard that in Tibet. I don't know if they never repressed their emotions or, they had no problem with that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel that, because sometimes people used to say that, my mother told me not to get angry, and then I didn't get angry, and then I had a problem later. I used to think, what a super mother she was, my mother can tell me not to get angry, but that would not prevent me from not getting angry, how can mother order me my emotions, so I think I later on thought, I was thinking that when you say that, I was repressing. That means like, I was getting angry and I wanted to like do something like, I don't know, crush the plates or something like that. And then my mother told me not to do it. And then I didn't do that. I didn't crush the plates, but I held my anger, and that's not good. And that's what, when we talk about not to be angry or not to, we are not talking about, still be angry, but not to show it. We are not talking about that. When we are saying that not, let the emotion go, we are saying that, not to be angry at all, because, you just you see how negative, how harmful that anger would be if you carry it out in your action. And so by realizing that, then you kind of let go. Means you don't, you decide not to be so hateful. You decide not to be so angry. If you can do that, I think there is nothing repressed. There's nothing repressed because, say like, for instance, it's like somebody told you that somebody is saying something very bad against you. And then you get very angry and upset. And then you find out that actually he never said those things against you. Then what happens to your anger? You repress it. You don't repress it because you let go. There was no reason because that emotion you had was based on the wrong information. So in the same way, if I get very angry or upset or whatever, or negative emotions, and then through my understanding, through my wisdom, or through my compassion, or through my reasoning, I see that it's not good, it's not useful, there is no need to be angry because it's not good for me and not good for others. So when I see that, and when I understand that, then my anger it changes, it goes away. And there is nothing repressed. It just, I release it because I see that to hold on to that anger is not necessary, is not useful, is not good. I think there's nothing repressed. But if I'm very angry and then, there's somebody told me you should not be angry, but I am not convinced, I am still angry and I hold on to that. And, I'm not acting now, but, after I get out of this house or I get out of this, then I'm holding on to that. I didn't do anything about my emotion. Actually, I just, I just changed tactic or I just changed the time. then the anger is still there and you are holding on to that anger. That's another matter.
Thank you. You have to, one has to practice to find these things out. What do we do if we lose our inspiration into practice? He said, this is a question from Nadia. What do I do if we lose our inspiration for practice? It's very sad, that kind of state, but it's sometimes very hard, sometimes to go back again into it.
Yeah, that's not that happens often. We forget. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we lose our inspiration. For that, we need to be re-inspired, and for that we have to sometimes read books or listen to teachings, or whatever inspires us or whatever used to inspire us. We have to do that. We have to think again. We have to recollect. We have to sometimes reading the teachings of great masters rekindles our inspiration. Sometimes listening to good teachings inspire us. Sometimes meeting with good people inspires us. It is, we need to do that again and again. And actually the use of Sangha is for that. We need people because my mind, sometimes I'm maybe more inspired today. Tomorrow I'm not inspired, but some of my friends may be more inspired, and then through their talk, or through their way, I can also be more inspired. And so this is a very normal way of life. We need to re-inspire us again and again. That's why also we need to think again and again, and read again and again, and kind of think about like this, Bodhicaryavatara, these instructions and things like that. So yeah, we need to do that again and again.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Your talk has been a great inspiration, and certainly to me, and I think for many of us, it's been very inspiring. So thank you very, very much indeed. But can I say that our next talk will be on the 23rd, I think. Let me just check the date, because there's been to be quite a big gap. So our next one is on the 22nd, actually, on Thursday, the 22nd of April. And so can I wish you a very happy break, and everybody else a happy break.
Okay.
And
thank you.
See you again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for your wonderful talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you all. Thank you so much.